Hey guys, welcome back to the Brocast episode 2. Really enjoyed making the first episode, and hopefully we keep coming strong with episode 2 and see where we go from here. But actually today I really wanted to talk about two things. One thing that came to my mind this morning was fall, autumn, whatever you'd like to call it, changing of the seasons. And then the other thing is understanding and how people understand themselves. So this cast is going to be a little bit off the cuff, I suppose, because I really just kind of wanted to give my feelings on stuff before actually taking a look at it, because I think it's important to the context of the discussion, at least on when it comes to understanding and that piece to it. But first, let's get into fall a little bit, right? So this morning, this is the first day that I actually thought for a minute, okay, you know what? It kind of feels like fall outside. And the reason for that is basically because it was a little bit cold last night. It was kind of chilly. I actually am wearing a long sleeve shirt for once. You rarely find me in a long sleeve shirt. I'm pretty hot most of the time, but last night I was pretty chilly and I had to throw something on. And the interesting part about fall that I think a lot of people miss is, people see it as a time for closure and closing off of things, right? Like traditionally, spring has been seen as a season that is related to rebirth and growth and new things coming apart, like relationships or promotions, or school is a great example of one of those things as well. But I think a lot of people don't consider fall equally as important. Now, I personally like fall. I like the balance of seasons in general, because it's kind of nice to have this juxtaposition between getting colder and kind of being more reclusive as people, and then also becoming warmer and becoming more open as well in terms of, hanging out in the environment, seeing people, being more bubbly and perhaps, getting a little bit more sun. But back to what I'm discussing essentially is that fall, right, is a time where most people, they don't really see it as something akin to spring, whereas again, spring is rebirth and stuff like that, but fall is more reclusive, right? People start coming inside, they start distancing just naturally. I think there's part of that in our own DNA that during the colder months, perhaps that's something that most humans do. I'm not sure, and I can't really comment on that, but it's something I feel might actually be true. But with that being said, I think that with all of the natural distancing that happens during these colder months as fall starts to take hold, I think there's an opportunity for people to really take advantage of that, and I don't really see that happen a lot of times. When we're more reclusive, we may not be thinking outwardly, how can we do better, how can we build things, how can we enhance things? How can we make our environments around us better? How can we start new relationships, do well in our job? Those are things that at least I, think about during the spring. But in the fall, we have time to ourselves more so. It's a little bit more peaceful. The environment kind of shapes itself, if you will, in a sense that, you have this beautiful cascade of leaves and trees, and you wear some heavier clothes and you go outside, things sound different than they sound in the summer, right? And I think it is a period that one might maximize if they wanted to improve themselves, right? Because you have a time where you can really self-reflect. You can really look at yourself and you can say, hey, I'm maybe I have some things I can work on. Maybe there's some things that I can do better in, right? Maybe during this fall season, instead of being sad that it's not summer, and I know some of you love fall even more than summer, so, you guys, the opposite advice applies, I suppose. But for the majority of the people who are more of a fan of summer, I think fall, you can take this time as the beginning of self-reflection, right? As we naturally distance ourselves, let's get closer to ourselves and understand who we are as people and what we want, right? Just touching a little bit on the previous episode, but, we have all these inner desires and wants and needs, and a lot of us shun those things. And the important thing is to not shun them, but to accept them and then decide how we're going to react on them. Because if we shun these inner wants and desires, they always grow into something worse, right? They become a part of us that leads to many very bad traits like resentment, one of the worst things possible. Resentment for, not doing the things you wanted to do. Resentment for, blaming others, essentially because you couldn't do those things, whatever it may be, right? These inner traits and these inner wants and needs and desires, we should accept as part of ourselves. And maybe some of them are not so great, but that's okay too. We just don't have to accept them, but logically understand that there may be a deep down part of us that actually wants them, right? And during fall, we can take this time to actually learn and grow and, set some goals for ourselves so that by the end of winter, once we actually get back into the spring season, we're actually ahead of ourselves, right? Because a lot of people don't see this, touching on back to what I said earlier, where spring is a time for rebirth and things like that. That's only half the coin. You can't have rebirth without death, right? And fall is the time that we all, as people, I believe, should die a little bit inside. And what I mean by that is we would like to kill off the parts of us that may not be productive, the parts of us that may not be what we want to be, who we see ourselves as, right? And then we allow ourselves to grow and become something different and better in the spring and summer. And that's to me, that's a beautiful analogy. I think it really works and it makes sense, and I've always tried to do that myself. It's quite funny, actually, for my own personal goals. I've been someone who really shoots for changing who I am more so in the winter months, so that when I enter those summer months, I'm a different person. And each year I try to be just slightly different, a little bit better. And improvement is one of those things where I don't think it's a good thing to strive for and say, okay, I'm perfect or I've done everything I can, because I think there's always room for it. But, if we goal set now during the start of the fall, we can work on ourselves. We can work on, sorry if I hit the mic, we can work on killing off those parts of ourselves that may be negative. And then we can open ourselves up for becoming a better person. And that to me is one of my ultimate goals of fall. Now, of course, we've got all those great things like, the leaves, as I mentioned earlier. I'm a huge fan of that. They sound crispy, crunchy. I know it's kind of cliche, but whatever. I like the chilly air. I think it puts you on keeps you on your toes a little bit more, makes you a little bit more alert and aware. I also notice in fall there's like a general silence, and I think that's because of the reclusion of the various creatures and humans that generally are around us all the time. I think they're much less during the fall. And also, finally, one thing I do absolutely hate is the pumpkin spice craze. I think that's absolutely garbage, but that's another story for another time. Maybe I'll just do another off-the-cusp cast on what kind of foods I like and what kind of foods I hate. If many of you may not know already, I've got quite an extensive cooking blog online, kind of a fun cook or whatnot. But again, we'll talk about my cooking ability another time and how I enjoy doing that. So fall, let's close this topic out before we move into the next one. My opinion on it, it's a time for reclusion to a certain degree. Bring yourself back to yourself, and then let's get rid of those parts of who we are that we don't like and that we need to improve on. And for some people, if you guys are so blessed to find out what is not great inside yourselves, and you're able to make those steps to kill it off and get rid of it instantaneously like that, more power to you. You guys are the lucky ones in society, at least for me and for a lot of other people. It really takes time to break those bad habits, to really get rid of those things that you've been doing, that you feel you've been doing personally poorly for quite some time. Again, take your time, take all of the winter season and the fall season to start reassessing, right? You can reassess yourself in fall, find out what those are, and then as winter comes around, when you're really reclusive and it's cold and all those other things, then start getting rid of those parts of yourself you don't like. That's my strategy. That's what I recommend. In springtime, you create the plan for how you're going to do better, or how you're going to emerge from that state of yourself, which is going to be new and energized and different and ready to take on the world, because you're going to be a better person. And that's the way I would recommend doing it. Boom, done. Okay, next topic, understanding. So this is the one that I really, really wanted to talk off the cuff for, because I'm a person that has an ever-evolving view on everything, right? And let me be very careful when I say that, right? Because I think that as a person they should be someone who learns constantly And I think that if you're someone who learns and strives for gaining new knowledge and understanding of the world around you constantly, it's really hard to not have an ever-evolving view of things. Other than like math, 2 plus 2 is 4, whatever it is, that's not going to change. But it's always good to keep understanding and taking in new information. And what you want to do with that information is reevaluate what you already know, right? And then you essentially compare what you know to the new information you had and kind of figure out how it all fits together again and as like this big puzzle, right? But I digress a little bit. So understanding, and this really came about because of a lot of things I see online and a lot of things I've had discussion-wise with people and various other things like this. But I think that we as a society have failed ourselves in a few key regards, and one of those is understanding our fellow human beings and people, in that we don't take enough time to really think about what someone else is saying. We don't take enough time to care what they're saying, and we don't take enough time to really understand what place it's coming from. And these are all incredibly important things to do, because if you don't care about where someone is coming from, if you don't care about how someone is saying something, and if you don't really care what they're saying, then you're basically failing yourself, right? Because every single person on this planet knows something you don't know, and that's just statistics. Basically, we all grow up, we all have our own experiences, we all come from different places. That's beautiful. But that means we all take in information slightly different, and that means every other person on this planet has a slightly different view than you, has a slightly different idea or bit of information that you may not have, and you should be very open to taking that in. That's how you become a better person. That's how you become more knowledgeable. That's how you become smarter on a wide range of subjects and topics, right? Personally, for myself, I'm the first person to say I'm not the smartest person in the room, because I sure as hell know I'm not. But with that being said, I'm very interested in hearing what people have to say about their own opinions and their own viewpoints, things like that. Now, back to what I'm saying, essentially, if you go through society, I think a lot of people have a disagreement, they have a point of view, and from their point of view, like if I'm talking right now, everything I'm saying, to my understanding, is accurate. It may not be, and likely a lot of times it's not, and that's okay, right? But you have to accept that it's okay to not say something accurate, to not say something that's right. And the reason you accept that is because if you don't accept that, then you won't change if you hear the right answer, if you hear the right definition, if you essentially hear something that is different. If you don't accept that it's okay to say something wrong and essentially fail in your communication to a certain degree, then you can't accept bringing in the right answer, and you'll just be someone who's stubborn and refuses to change their opinions, right? So when you have a dialogue with someone, and again, I'll go back to the reason I brought this up in just a few minutes, but when you have a dialogue with someone, you don't want to essentially just fight to be right, because no one wins there. You lose the piece of information and understanding that you could gain from someone else's own unique viewpoint, and they lose because you were too stubborn to level set. Now, a lot of times other people that you're talking to in any capacity can be the ones that are unwilling to break, unwilling to budge, who have that opinion that's so ingrained they're not going to change it, and that's okay. The way that I have found to deal with situations like that, the best way is to say, look, I really respect your opinion. Thank you for letting me know. This is really interesting, and I really would like to learn more. And I don't say that unless I really do want to learn more, which almost 100% of the time it is, right? Unless someone's super upset or something like that. But going back to what I'm saying, essentially, right? When you have these discussions with people that tend to get heated sometimes, or perhaps your own viewpoint is so ingrained because maybe you're an expert in your field or on whatever topic you're talking about. Just be open to hearing what someone else says. You want that understanding. You want to be a person who can be open to hearing new thoughts, new ideas, new opinions. That's how you grow. That's how you become better. To a certain degree, it definitely helps the person you're hearing confide in you. It helps them provide more true information. And what I've found is if you're talking to someone that is super understanding, they're going to level set with you a lot better than if they were talking to someone who they thought was kind of like an iron wall that just didn't care what they had to say, right? And that's when conversation devolves into fighting and anger and hate. It's when we lose that piece of us that all of us are really experts inside on, which is understanding. And to simplify it a little bit, the best way to do that is just kind of to tell that inner voice of yours to just shut up sometimes. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? A lot of people get confused and they think that, I have to be right. And the reason for that is they tie being right to the core of who they are. When you tie being right to the core of who you are, you lose the ability to reflect and grow. Being right should not be the goal. The goal should be to understand. Once you understand, you can grow, and then you can do better, right? And even in some conversations I've had with people, by just simply having and taking a viewpoint of understanding, I've had people change their opinion mid-conversation without me saying a single thing because I was just very interested in hearing what they had to say. And they were like, look, you're the first person that really listened to me, to hear me out, to hear what I had to say, and kind of didn't judge me. And didn't. That's a great topic for another time. No judgment. But that's another topic, But back to what I'm saying, people want to tell you what's on their mind. That is innate in all of us. We're creatures of communication. We're creatures of, groups. We like to be around others. That's in our DNA. That's what makes us human. A piece of it, not the main piece, but definitely a big piece of it. Collaboration, So understand. Seek first to understand. And people will absolutely give you more information than you're asking for and a better idea of what they're trying to communicate. It's always worked for me, and I would highly recommend that you take that on and think about basically trying that out for yourself. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, so you're wrong sometimes. So what? If all you do is tie being right to who you are and your self-worth, you're not going to get anywhere in life. Because I'll tell you straight off, you sure as hell are not right 100% of the time. That's statistically impossible. So what, those times you're not right, you're just going to beat yourself up into oblivion for? Fuck that. I'm wrong all the time. And when I'm wrong, it makes me happy. Because once I hear something that's right, I readjust my focus, I readjust my opinion, and I incorporate that piece into who I am. And then I learn more, then I grow more, then I become better. That's how you strive. That's what you should strive for, That's the direction we need to go in. That's why understanding is so important. Because you have to break down the way someone communicates. You have to break down why they're communicating something. You have to break down what their background is. You have to break down how they're doing it, how they're communicating, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's via phone, via text, via email, whatever, it doesn't matter. All of those pieces exist, and all of those pieces are part of the communication. This is why I really enjoy face-to-face communication, and perhaps why I'm kind of enjoying this whole YouTube thing or podcast thing, whatever the heck it's going to be, as I continue, because I can really feel like I'm talking to someone as well. And it took a minute to get over, but again, that's a side note completely. But back to what I'm saying, that's why I personally enjoy face-to-face communication, because I would like to think I'm pretty decent at reading people, and if I am, then I'm able to read those things, and you can get a lot more pieces of that whole pie to really understand where someone's coming from, why they're saying something, what they're trying to say, and how they're saying it. And again, to close this one out, because I think I've beat this one a little bit longer than I have, and I think my cat down here is getting a little bit anxious, is if we can do all these things as a society, and we can grow, and we can seek to understand better, that is good for all of us. That's good for you. That's good for me. That's good for everyone. Because once we understand, I think that we'll all kind of see that we're closer than we thought we were. We should celebrate our differences. They're beautiful. But humans in general all kind of want the same things at the end of the day. They just want to do well for themselves. There's very few people out there that are really like, I just want to be, the richest, bestest person in the world. And you should definitely strive for being the best person that you can be. But at the end of the day, people just want to know that they don't have to worry about little things like, finding food, having a job, getting an education, having shelter. These real basic things. Those traits are, minus education, are mostly innate in all of us as humans. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got to fulfill that before you do anything else. But that's about it, really, on understanding. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I thought this was a pretty decent cast off the cusp. If you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, chat about, or you want me to go into a little bit deeper, very happy to do that. I was just talking to one of my buddies the other day who's going to be the first person on this podcast. It's kind of like a conversational thing. He is doing some really big things in DC right now with the community, and I'm really excited to interview him and see where things go. But hopefully we keep this up and we keep up our momentum. We throw another cast on. If I can do daily, I'll do daily. I don't think I'm going to do anything on the weekends. That's kind of me time. But you know what? If you're lucky, maybe I'll throw in some weekend casts if this is something that people are interested in listening to. But other way, I'm going to do it for me, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm having fun. So if you like it, like my video, down like it if you didn't, subscribe if you're interested in more content, and feel free to leave a content of anything you're interested in. I'm pretty much free to talk about whatever you guys are interested in. Otherwise, it's going to be off the top of my head, what I'm feeling at the time, what's going on, and we'll see where we go from there. Thanks for giving me a listen. This is the Brokecast episode 2. Have a good day.